I like to challenge myself. If you do a feature film, you're on it for 6 months, 9 months. There's a certain pace to that. There's a certain day-to-day that you're doing things. When I stop doing those, I look for commercials or these other opportunities where I'm cutting a 2-minute spot in 48 hours because of an event that they're talking about just happened and we have to make it visible. And that's an extremely different challenge and a different set of skills that you have to have as an editor.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cut to Reveal podcast, where we discuss the editing art form and all the hurdles of that career path. Today, Peter talks with Vashi Nedomansky. Peter, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, hey everyone. So you probably know his name. Vashi is widely known, I think, in the industry. And he's also a member of American Cinema Editors. He's just well accomplished. That's what I can say. And he's widely known for Vashi frames, the concept of putting every shot from a film on one single deck, one single board. But, we talk about all the film is filmmaking. So not only about Vashi frames, but about his documentary, Big Net, that he's working on. And I'm super excited to see it when it comes out.
Me too.
And about other filmmaking, editing related things that are golden nuggets, I think. There are a few golden nuggets there for sure. So yeah, let's just, cut to it. Very glad to have you here. So thank you for joining.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. You know how much I love talking about filmmaking and everything else. So
we do. Yeah,
I'm prone to rambling.
I want to start with asking you about your journey from Czechoslovakia to where you are right now.
I was born in Czechoslovakia during the communist times in the middle of the Cold War, which apparently has returned, and it's kind of obviously scary for everyone. But when I was 4 years old, my parents defected from Czechoslovakia and we moved to Toronto first and then Detroit and all over North America. My father was a professional hockey player and the first player to defect from a communist country and play in the National Hockey League. And he was actually just inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame a year and a half ago. And so that was the reason we could get out. We escaped, chased by all the bad guys all over Europe. And then we finally got to Canada and to safety. But it was actually, once we got here, I grew up playing hockey with my dad and watching him and everything. My mother was a photographer, and so she was always photographing everything. So I learned basically photography, the basics of camera work, everything from framing to exposure, ISO, all that kind of stuff, depth of field. So I was usually her little subject. So she would shoot me and then I would see the photos and then I would slowly understand. And she would also take me to see movies because we didn't speak English. We're playing, living in North America. My dad's gone playing hockey. So my mom would always take me every weekend to at least 2 or 3 movies. And so from the age of literally 5 or 6, because she wasn't going to leave me at home, she'd take me to the movies. And I'm watching everything from, Woody Allen to Godard to Hitchcock to whatever's playing, And if there was subtitles, it was even better for her because she could, hear it in the original language and read the words.
Yeah.
So for about 10 years from the age of 4, every weekend was just watching movies. So I had this internal indoctrination into filmmaking and an appreciation of cinema. And a lot of those topics in the films I shouldn't be seeing as a 5-year-old, as you can imagine. But so, I got to see everything early. And I believe in osmosis when you're dealing with your creativity and all the things that you input into yourself and it gets stored in your brain and you can pull it out. If you're practicing and training this, that I can still remember those movies. I can still remember scenes or shots or responses from the audience. And that I think was the start of my building up your internal mechanism to understand what cinema is, understand what filmmaking is, and then trying to apply it to the part of the craft that you best connect with. And for me at that age, it started with editing because that was the first time you can start creating something, literally creating something.
Yeah.
And again, back to my parents, my dad was the first star of a hockey game and he won a VHS camera, a big shoulder mount one that's 15 pounds and a VHS deck that you put on the side of your hip. It weighed 40 pounds together. The battery lasted maybe 35 minutes. And I was tasked with shooting birthday parties, with holidays. If we went on a trip, I would shoot stuff. And so I'm 12 years old and I'm just shooting random things, using what I knew from photography, trying to capture motion now. And then when I got back home with the footage, I realized, and I've talked to so many editors and, I've trained and worked with so many other editors. This is very, very common. And I'm sure you've even done a version of this where I had a VHS at home and I had the VHS camera with its own VHS, hook them up together. And then I realized I can now edit non-linear. I can take one piece from the one camera, fast forward it, record it onto the second VHS, rewind it, get another shot, play that in order. So I pick the order of the shots. That was the moment I realized, I was film editing, but I didn't call it that. I just called it storytelling, which I think is the bigger image of what it is, because you're making those creative decisions and you're using the technologies that are available to you at that time to help make it. And the culmination of that, after a couple of years in high school, I asked my English teacher, I was doing a book report. I said, can I do a short film instead of a written book report? 5 minutes max. And the teacher was very progressive, Mr. Duggan, actually. Mm-hmm. And he allowed me to go do that. So I cast my friends. I shot it in my backyard over a weekend. I cut it. I added music, sound effects, and then I showed it in class. And anyone who's created something across any art form, if you present your work and you get a positive response, you get some laughs, you get some, just people obviously enjoying it, that's extremely addictive. And it's very positive reinforcement that we all get. And when you get it early, you get it early, you want more of it. You're like, I want to do that again, but bigger and better and different topics. So that was my journey to through my childhood of understanding that I loved the craft of filmmaking, understanding that I knew how to edit, and now I knew how to tell a story. And at the same time, I played professional hockey when I graduated from college. I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I played hockey there for 4 years, and I played professionally for 10 years. And then during those 10 years, I was always either writing scripts or shooting short films, obviously seeing movies as much as I can, reading scripts, and just preparing for that time when my hockey career, which is its own entity and its own restrictiveness and physical limitations of how long you can play. Mm-hmm. You got to ride that out. I knew I could be a filmmaker forever, but hockey at a professional setting, is a whole nother world. And I was with the New York Islanders organization and the LA Kings and, played for 10 years. And when I retired, literally the next day, I'm a film editor. I'm in Los Angeles. Get the word out. I will cut anything. I need work. I need jobs. I need experience. I need connections. And literally the day I retired, the next day I was out there trying to pimp myself out as I'm your editor. I can do whatever story you want told, I can cut it.
What the story, man. What the story. And how did you get to edit your first feature film? Because that's something many people struggle with. I haven't edited my narrative feature yet. So I'm wondering how did you get?
It always starts with obviously doing a smaller project. And I was making my own short films in LA. I was shooting and cutting music videos for bands, really bad web episodes. People were trying to be comedians or acting, doing their own short films. So I'd shoot and cut that. And I was doing a lot of it for free because I didn't have a reel and I had to get something to work with. And I had some friends that were in the industry that were on TV and stuff. So by working with them, I can get a familiar face on some of my work. And I showed something to a friend and he says, oh, you got to come in and meet my boss. He needs an editor. And I'm sure you'd like him. And that was David Zucker, the director of Airplane and, Naked Gun and all that stuff. So I went to meet him and he's like, I got all these skits and spots and commercials and ideas I want to work with. So I worked with him for a year and a half, creating all these advertisements and political ads. At that point, it was for the Republican Party, for Zucker. And they were just funny, those skitty, exactly visual gags, one after another. And it was really fun. I learned a lot about comedy editing from him because he's the master of knowing what you need and all his rules. He has 21 rules for comedy. And it's a great article. I'm actually going to share that. I'm going to go interview him and have him expand on that and also update it. That's say cool. What's changed, what's changed since the 80s in terms of comedy. So learning that, almost all of what I learned from him was take out all the air. No shoe leather, no gaps, just cook, just go. Don't make him wait for anything. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I thought I was being really smart. I'm but obviously after a joke, you leave a nice gap so that people can laugh and appreciate it. He goes, wrong. That's not what you do. You don't put a gap because then they don't hear it. Then they're going to come back and watch the movie again. So they hear it the second time. So that's what he told me. He literally said, no air. If they're laughing, that's great. If they missed it, they can come back and watch it later. So that was something, I was trying to be all cool. Yes, I know the rules. No, I didn't know the rules. None of us do. That's the point. That's the point. You have to either be handed that by someone or you do it 10 different ways incorrectly and then do it one way correctly and go, there it is. That's what I should have done. Yeah. So after the commercials with David, I'd edited a couple independent films in LA, just 90-minute features. People are funding for 150 grand, 250 grand. I got my feet wet with those, but then David asked me to cut his next feature film, which was An American Carol, which was, again, it's like conservative comedy, making fun of everyone. And it didn't do too well. But again, the experience of working with him, being able to cut, Dennis Hopper was in the film. I mean, I had Leslie Nielsen in one of his last roles. So all of these heroes that I knew growing up, I'm cutting them and I'm watching all the raw footage. Dennis Hopper, he's there, he's playing a judge. I get to watch him interact and what happens before the take and after the take. Yeah. And so as a learning experience, working for a studio to cut a feature film for David Zucker, that was my biggest break at that point. That was 2008, I think. So yeah, so that was the first. And then since then I've cut another 7 or 8 feature films. And then in between, I love cutting commercials and again, music videos and all that kind of stuff. I'm cutting some commercials this upcoming week for a national campaign, some 4 spots. And what's really funny is with Zucker cutting the conservative ads this last year or 2020 for the election, I cut all the Don Winslow ads. I don't know if you saw them on Twitter and everywhere else. Don Winslow is an author that did not want Trump to get elected. And so there were all these, campaign ads. So I did a dozen ads in like 2 months running up to the election just to show people a different viewpoint. So as an editor, you have to tell a story that the client wants. And I've worked on both sides politically, and it's really interesting and really fun because, you are manipulating people, you're giving information. But the one thing with Don Winslow, I said, I will do it for you. He doesn't take donations. He's not trying to make money for himself. He just wants a message delivered. I said, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to use the kids of any of the families, whatever. And I want to make it cinematic and set a visual style so it looks of the same world. So it's not just like random images and stuff. And he agreed to all that. And then, we did 12 spots, and each spot had like 5 or 6 million views in like 2 days. So that was insane to get that kind of feedback and response. Again, editing on a very tight schedule. So again, it just cutting and editing and all that kind of stuff. And any opportunity I get, I love to do it. And I like to challenge myself. If you do a feature film, you're on it for 6 months, 9 months. There's a certain pace to that. There's a certain day-to-day that you're doing things. When I stop doing those, I look for commercials or these other opportunities where I'm cutting a 2-minute spot in 48 hours because an event that they're talking about just happened and we have to make it visible. And that's an extremely different challenge and a different set of skills that you have to have as an editor.
Totally different than the narrative editing where you have like plenty of time. Yeah, totally different.
Totally different.
I like how you set the rules for the collaboration.
Yes, yeah. So no lies. I have to have attribution for everything that we're saying. Like I need to see the source and know the source, and then obviously no kids, and then cinematic. So I thought that was important. And I was also trying to tell him, I'm not just an editor you call and say, cut this stuff. I'm a collaborator. I want to be part of the message. I want to set these boundaries to make it a level playing field so no one could criticize any of the ads for any reason in terms of that's a lie or whatever. Didn't want my name associated with that at all unless we were 100% accurate.
Talking about setting the rules, you have this list of 7 commandments, right? Which I love. I do agree with them. I live by them. But the first one is something that I want to discuss a little bit more because I find it a little bit more like controversial.
That's fine. That's good. Not everyone should agree with every rule. That'd be boring as hell.
Yeah. So let's go. Let's name it. So it's watch every frame of the footage, of raw footage, at least twice, then start. And I agree that it's a luxury to have such an option to watch every frame of the footage twice. But at the same time, it's probably not possible for many editors. And also, the very reason why we actually create select reels is to give us a way to kind of not watch the stuff that won't be usable for the second time. So just your commentary on that, I guess.
Yeah, no, sure. I agree with you completely that every job is different and the time frames a lot associated with those jobs can be wildly varying from a lot of free time to 2-day turnaround. For example, a national commercial, a 30-second spot, you might get 10 hours of footage and it's due in 3 days. So you're like, so you're going to, am I saying I spend 20 hours of that looking at the footage twice before I start cutting? No, I can't on that one. I can go by the director's notes. I can go by his selects, his circle takes. I can go right to the last shot in every series, put that in as a starting point and share that with the director, the producer, or the company. That's always a starting point, that's rational and good. I just like to get my brain and my hands and my heart, like my emotions around the footage. And even if it is a commercial for a car, like I did a VW campaign, like four separate spots. And I wanted to see every, like, they're sliding and turning and Tokyo drifting everywhere. But I want to see what was the best one. And there's an hour of them just drifting. And I'm like, well, I'm going to watch the whole hour because I want literally the best camera move that goes with the best car move, with the best lighting. And I'm looking for that. I could have easily just gone to the last one and put it in, but I found, 10 minutes in of a 1 hour run, the perfect one. It's definitely budgeting your time, which is a huge, huge thing an editor has to understand and know and have a grasp of. Budgeting time. When is something due? What are the expectations of that when it's due? What can I realistically do in that time frame that will make me look good and make them happy, and then I can try and work around something after the fact. So it's a huge balancing act.
Yeah, I think I've heard Tom Cruise saying the same thing. When he's under the time pressure, he usually goes with one of the last takes. So he watches his select reels from the end. And then once he has the take that is usable, he uses that as a rough cut. But later in the process, once he has all of the rough cuts for all the scenes, he tries to go back and watch all of the takes, because very often, the first take is actually the one that is most natural, right? Because
it's the instinct of the actor, especially when it's an actor. If it's a single or something, then they're doing something. Yeah, so that's super important. Actually, I talked to Tom at the A.C.E. Was it two weeks ago? I got to go have a chat with him. If you ever want to see 500 editors in like a 5-floor crazy bar restaurant, I don't think I've ever seen that much alcohol being consumed at one time. It was beautiful. 500 editors all running around, out of our cages, being out in public. It was awesome. We're such solitary creatures a lot of the time, but boy, we can rip shit up if we need to. I was proud of my fellow editors, my fellow ACE editors.
I like the way you put it. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about Vashi frames, because that's something you came up with. I think you got well known for. So what's your reason, to start doing this? Like, what was your thinking when you made the first one?
Right. I've been doing it for, I think, almost 10 years now, and I hadn't seen anyone else doing it. And you're the first person to attempt a similar approach, and there's many ways to create them. But I think what's more important behind it is the reason why I make them, and then what they actually can share and teach you if you're a filmmaker or not even a filmmaker. If you're just, or if you like colors. There's one thing, like I made the West Side Story, Spielberg's film. There's 1,500 shots, and there's a complete different color palette at the beginning and in the middle and at the end. You can really visually spot changes in scene, changes in location, shot size. Are there a lot of close-ups? Are there a lot of wide shots? Some films I watched literally, like The Shining, is only 660 shots, complete individual shots. West Side Story is 1,500. I'm finishing off JFK, which I think to this day, still think is the best edited feature film of all time that I've seen. There's over 4,500 individual shots in JFK. And that was, they filmed on Super 8mm, 16, videotape, 35mm, digital. All those things were transcoded to a certain extent and then edited together, then exported back out to film. But the reason I do it is, as an editor, I like to break things up, and see what's going on the innards, right? So a feature film, you're like, yeah, it's an hour and a half. You ask someone how many average shots, number of shots, they don't know. It's around 1,400, across all genres. If you just say a 2-hour feature film, has 1,400 shots. That's a good average. Some have more, some have less. Annie Hall won the best picture with 349 individual shots.
Wow.
The reason I did this was, why is Annie Hall so good as a movie? And it only had 349 shots. How can it win the Oscar for best film? what does that mean? It means the shots are really long. It means their shots are like, I think it averaged like 25 seconds a shot. So when I make a Vashi frame, the first thing I can look at is the colors, the pacing, the shot size, the costumes, whatever. Then I could see the pacing of the film, how many shots versus how long it is. And I've been calculating average shot length, again, just for myself, to be like, why do I like this movie? And then are there factors that I can reverse engineer to understand why it works and why that movie sits well with me? And my conclusion to all this process was definitely I like films that have longer shot times. The average shot time right now is about 3 seconds for a feature film, average. People like Paul Thomas Anderson average 17 seconds, a shot. Yeah. Spielberg is like 8 seconds a shot across his whole career. So I like movies that have a little more breadth, a little more air. Like when you're watching something, you can really live in it. There's times for fast cutting. There's times for letting the shot play out. And those are all decisions of the editors. So by reverse engineering these films, making the Vashi frame, it gives me a helpful tool to answer some of those questions for myself and see what registers and what connects with me for my own projects and my own styles. And so it's just quantifying filmmaking, which is a vastly arrogant statement, but it's quantifying certain elements that can be quantified.
I get it. When I made the first one for the beta test, Jim Cummings film, the thing that you don't see behind Vashi frames is that you have the timeline with the cuts on it, right? And you can recognize the cutting patterns. So, for example, there was a moment that there was a cutting pattern that he used a few times throughout the film, where he cuts to a shot that is 3 frames in duration, just to get this moment of getting out of the character's head. So there is a long shot where we get kind of into what he's thinking, what he's doing, and then we get this abrupt, and this is a cutting pattern that he redoes. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it on the timeline. It's just copy paste in a few places, right? So that's something that
with my Vashi frames, each image is 1920 by 1080. So it's a huge. I do mine in Photoshop. I do it in DaVinci Resolve with scene auto detection. Yeah. Then I lower the bar so I can see more cuts. But the biggest part of it is that takes maybe 25 minutes or half an hour. But then I scroll through the entire film and I pick the best portion of every shot, because some shots, the door's closed. When on the start of the shot, a door opens, someone stands there and delivers a line.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show the door. I'm going to show the moment of the guy or the actor entering frame, because that's the shot we recognize. That's what we know. Mm-hmm. So I do that for every shot, and then I remove flash frames. If there's a dissolve, you have to add a cut, because none of the AI will catch a dissolve. And even dark rooms, dark lighting, it won't catch many of the cuts. And if there's a center framed actor and there's reverse, another actor doesn't see that. So I'm glad that you're taking your time, because for me, I'm making sure this is the most accurate representation of a film, that every cut is counted for. Every shot is there that was in the film. It's not some half-assed thing. I'm like, hey, look, I made a cool image. This is a tool. This is knowledge. And I want every one of them to be perfect. And that's why I take that much time. Some of the longer films will take me 8 or 10 hours to do. In Tenet or, Godfather, there's shots, some approaching 2,000 shots. It takes a long time to pick the right frame. And I want it to be accurate. So when you zoom in, you're basically just reminding people, when they see a scene, they're like, I know every shot in that scene, but if you have the wrong part of the frame, they're like, what scene is that? I don't even recognize it. I just find it so illuminating and so cool. And I have so many people that reach out, please, I cut that film. Can you send me the file? And I'll just send them the Photoshop file, which is really nice when other editors are like, I need that in my edit bay. I'm so proud of the film. And now it's every shot. That's, can you send it to me? I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. So I am in negotiations of trying to work out some deals to be able to sell them, because everyone wants to buy it. And obviously I can't sell it without some kind of agreement. So I'm getting closer to that, which would be wonderful, because so many people want it. How it is. You show yours. I saw your tweets and people are like, that looks insane. Oh my God, I'm going to do my own. And they go to start doing it. So it's everyone's trying it, and everyone has their favorite film. It speaks to whatever film really speaks to you that you like. that's the one they want to go do. And then it's also a sense of accomplishment. Like you feel like you've done something and there's a reward and there's an actual document that you get to share and analyze and do whatever with.
Yeah.
I love Vashi frames.
Yeah, me too.
I love doing
them. I love Vashi frames as well. Yeah. Okay, man. I want to change the topic to Big Net because that's the film you're working on right now, right? That's a film about your father. And I don't even have like a very specific question here because I don't know what is the the part of the process you're on right now, and like basically how do you go about bringing it to life? By now I know that you already have a lot of archival footage because you are the one and your mother like took a lot of pictures, and so that's the source that you have. But like what is the way you are going to bring it to life?
So doing a documentary about your father, who's famous hockey player, all that stuff, defector, it's his story, but it's also my story because we all defected and we all had to make these enormous life changes.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to make the story about was, put it this way, I'm the directing, I'm the editor, I'm the everything cinematographer.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a film about my father who happened to be a hockey player. If I make just a hockey documentary, no one wants to watch that. There has to be much, much more to a documentary than literally what the guy is or what the subject is and their linear story. So I decided to make something a lot bigger. The story is set in the Cold War. And at its essence, it's literally a look at capitalist versus communist systems in the 70s and 80s, because how people are treated in each system can be good or bad. How the world was changing at that time was good and bad. How my father as an immigrant coming to North America is looked at like a spy, a communist, even people on some of his teams didn't like him. He didn't speak English. He's coming to America, taking a job from a Canadian or a North American. So all of these components popping up and me remembering all these little things is what I wanted to tell the story. And when I initially started working on this film about 5 years ago, and I've been asking all my other friends that do documentaries, they're like, how long? They're like 8 years it took me. It took 8 years between funding and everything else all the way around. So I'm on like year 5 and my dad's already, is it done? Can we sell it? Can we see it? What's going on with the film? How's my story look? I'm like, dude, I'm getting close. Trust me. So creatively, I'm almost there. Logistically and legally, another component that filmmakers have to deal with is the biggest challenge in terms of paying for NHL rights usage for the footage when my dad's playing for the Detroit Red Wings or the New York Rangers. All of that is insanely high. And when I started the process, I went to some of the biggest TV companies, all the companies you would expect that would want to be involved. All of them were extremely interested. All of them had the budget to match my thing. All of them wanted to attach a producer, an editor, a team to travel with me. And I'm like, so we're going to go to Czechoslovakia. You're going to send 2 producers that don't speak Czech, a camera crew, and the money goes out of the budget goes for flying them there. Why would I do that? And they're like, oh, and you need to be in the film too. You should be on camera and it should be linear and nice and easy so everyone can understand it. I'm like, you guys don't get what I'm trying to do. Like that's the polar opposite, and the responsibility of telling a family member's story in both a engaging, creative way and an authentic way. What can you reveal? What can't you reveal? Do you want to piss your dad off? Do you want to make the story extra entertaining by telling something? That's a huge struggle, during the storytelling process. Yeah. So those are the things I've been balancing and juggling with. So creatively, I'm almost there. And the most important part was that 90% of the documentary is archival, and all that footage has never been seen. And then we're talking, I went to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, and they allowed me to go through their archives and pull footage that's never been scanned, never been telecinied. So I have like literally 4 and 5K scans of all the archival footage in the film, in the documentary, plus my mom's archives of all her photography over 25 years. So it's almost all archival. And again, I thought it was important as a viewer, telling the story, is to insert the person back into the Cold War, insert them back into the 70s and 80s I have television commercials from Czechoslovakia from like 1971 as almost like interstitials as we're going from one section to another, just to place you there without having to hammer you over the head. I want it to be a flowing experience. It's a wild ride. A lot happens, multimedia, and that's my approach to try and make it something like that. And no talking heads. That was the other reason that I couldn't go with the producers and the stations and the networks. They're like, we'll interview your dad, we'll get all that stuff. I'm like, I don't want to see all my dad's friends and him at 75 saying, oh, well, then this one day I remember. I don't care. I hate that. I hate that. Look at when the Beatles Get Back came out. I'm like, there's the thing I've been saying for 5 years. I've been trying to accomplish. I'm just, getting more shots and more funding, but that's the perfect representation of something where you just feel like you're there with them. Obviously, that was very specific. The footage was perfect. They documented the entire run of recording that album. I don't have that luxury because we're traveling all over the place, but the intent and the feel is what I'm going for in that aspect of transporting a person back to a time they may not know of, or they might remember, or they heard of, but make it feel authentic and make it feel real with the real footage that happened at that time. So everyone is at the peak of their game. Everyone is the young immortal, and that's what I want to represent in the film.
You're on your own with that project, right?
I had a second cinematographer that I went with. We shot a lot of Super 8 and Super 16 ourselves. For certain things that we're trying to duplicate the actual footage that was shot there, I've shot maybe 4 hours of Super 8 and Super 16. It's all scanned. Everything from my father today holding magazines and newspapers from that era, from the actual stuff. So you see his hands, you don't see his face. So it's a technique that I'm using that it really is him. And it's filmed on Super 8, so it looks like it's from the 70s, but it's him. So I find that conceit functional for me as being real. It's really my dad. You just can't see his face, so you can't see that he's 75, And you're seeing all the cards and photos and magazines, and I find it a very personal approach to be right over his shoulder, looking at what he's looking at.
Yeah. By the way, how did you kind of come up with the idea actually?
For the whole film or for the approach?
Yeah, for the whole film.
I just felt that it was time to tell his story. Everyone in my whole life, playing professional hockey with my father already in the world, everyone's like, oh, your dad's story is amazing. That should be a movie. 20 years of that. And then finally being in a position where I can fund it, I can shoot it, I can cut it, I have access to footage archival that was never available before. I reached out to some friends in Czech Republic. I got the archives from their sports in the 60s that, again, no one's ever seen. Once I realized I had all the pieces, I had to decide on the storytelling approach, how it's going to be cut, how it's going to be presented, and then everything else kind of fell into place. So I have, the whole wall with all the cards. I know exactly what's going to happen when, But every time, and as an editor, you'll appreciate this. Every time you're cutting something and you find some new footage, you're like, this will fit right here perfectly. And then I don't need this. I don't need this photo. I can replace that. But wait, now I got another piece. Well, that's going to shift everything. Now I got to shift that all over there. And then we'll go, okay, well, I got to rework this now. Literally one piece of footage can change the complexion of the entire edit. Yeah. And so it's such a fluid matrix of editing, no matter what, a documentary is more so than narrative, than scripted stuff, because there are no rules. And I laugh, when you apply for a documentary loan from a grant or something, they're like, send the script. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? There's no script. Documentaries don't have scripts. They're changing every day. They're fluid. Come on, man. So that's the reason why. So I just realized it was time. And also my father had a really bad stage 4 cancer about 8-9 years ago that he survived. He's healthier now. And that was also, again, what so many people go through and so many people have to deal with usually bad endings or sad endings. He survived, and I want to tell his story for him and for everyone else.
What are the odds? What are the odds of you being the perfect person to tell that story, and you happen to be a film editor? What are the odds? I also want to ask you about you becoming A.C.E, a member, right? A.C.E member. Because I'm wondering, what are the things you have to check on the list for? So do you have to have an American citizenship, or is it something that anyone can try to accomplish? ACE
as a group is it's not a guild; it's a invite-only association of like-minded editors that are not only excellent film editors, but we're trying to promote the craft of film editing. We're trying to promote the technological advancement of this film telling and filmmaking style that's very specific. It's one of the only crafts that were literally created, 100 years ago. There wasn't film editing or anything before. It has no other lineage, besides this. And so the way to get into ACE is you have to be first submitted by 2 ACE members, have to submit your name as a starting point. Then you have to fill out like a 20-page application, which shows the work you've done. And there are obviously requirements in terms of how many months you've had to work on feature films. And right now, I think it's like 90 months total. Don't quote me, like it's somewhere around that. But that's like, these are where you have to have pay stubs and proof. You can't just say, oh, I cut 10 films.
Yeah.
Where are they? Oh, they're unfinished, but they're cut. They're great. So it has to be legit, like that component there. And then after you fill out your application, if they like your application, then you have to go in for an interview with about 6 current ACE editors. And you do that in person at the ACE office or on a studio somewhere. And they ask you about everything, your approach to editing, what else do you do with your time? How would you promote it? Like all these questions, you never know. And then after that, you hear back from ACE. And I was super proud that I got in, December 2019.
Yeah.
Literally right before the pandemic.
The craziness.
I was graciously accepted, and I was just beyond proud to be one of many other editors that love storytelling, love promoting editing like we're doing here. Like this is super important.
Yeah.
How many people still don't know what an editor does?
Yeah, obviously.
How many people have no concept of, oh, you cut out the bad stuff, or, oh, you just slap some stuff together.
Yeah.
No concept of the politics of the cutting room, just the time exuded into it, the skill sets beyond film editing that you have to have, like sound, music, art, textures, like all these things are components of an editor that can help you if you put the time in. So I'm trying to do my part to just shine a light on film editing and the storytelling craft and show people behind the scenes of what it's really like to be an editor. And that's what I use, my Twitter and stuff for. That's why I share these insane facts and informations, which appear cool by themselves, but are part of a bigger thing. Yeah. When taken all in whole. When you see, oh, Deadpool, I worked on that for 9 months, 555 hours of raw footage, right? Yeah. That's insane. That's a lot of footage. If you watch that twice before you start editing, this film would still not be out in theaters. It'd still be in editorial. But those are like numbers that most people don't think about.
By the way, do documentary features count to that, experience time as well?
Yeah, documentary feature, as long as they're feature length, meaning for documentaries, they have to be more than 60 minutes, I believe. Feature films have to be 72 or whatever. Commercials don't count in terms of ACE. There's definitely rules, and they are always shifting the rules slightly. So, but if you go to ACE, ACE, American Film Cinema Editors, they have the requirements there. It's nice just to look like, and to be honest, I have to thank my wife because she was the one like, you should talk to your other friends at ACE and you should try and get a submission in and get your application. I'm like, I know I have the qualifications, but like, that's like the highest level of everything. And like, they wouldn't want someone like me. And then I filled it out and everything went great. And they were so happy to have me. And I'm like,
yeah,
I thanked her because like literally I wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, I got to put more time in. I got to do this, even though I was way past I had blown past the specs that I needed to get in. But there's the whole other thing of like the importance of that position, and then giving that information back to other people and helping other people, mentoring, giving feedback to everyone. I mean, it's so much, and I've been lucky enough over the last 4 or 5 years. I've always used Adobe Premiere Pro for like the last 20 years. Yep. And probably one of the best parts of the whole thing was Adobe hired me to train other ACE editors that wanted to learn Premiere or had started a project and they'd never cut on it. So over the last 3 or 4 years, I've trained 60 or 70 fellow ACE editors how to use Premiere, how to transition from like Avid to Premiere or whatever else you're cutting on. And I got to meet like literally my editing heroes. And I'm teaching them something in terms of like, this is how this system works. Yeah. And here's how you did in Avid. Here's the same way doing it over here. And then hearing their stories from their editorials. I'm like, Tell me about Star Wars. Tell me about Raiders. Tell me about every film that I love. I got to talk to all these editors, like one-on-one for, days at a time. And what's really funny, you'll appreciate this. The older editors are the ones more apt to reach out and say, can I get training, or can you show me how you cut on Premiere? Not the younger ones, because the older ones literally don't want to be left out, or they don't want to have a tool that's not in their toolbox. They're like, I need to learn, because between the streamers and everything else, there's, I think, 800 shows right now on all the streaming channels and everything, 800 shows being in production. Every single one of them needs an editor and everything else. So they need to be ready. And that was really enheartening. I really like that, because sometimes the younger people are like, I don't need that. I was going to do this, or, I only cut on this. I'm like, all right, well, you're missing out on half the market. Like, I've cut feature films on Avid, Final Cut, Premiere Pro. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just an interface, just a tool. I may have a preference, but the basic mechanics of film editing is literally 6 or 7 mechanical steps: in, out, insert, delete, ripple, whatever. You keep doing that. And then just as long as you can control your footage, know where everything is, know what the intent of the scene is, the mechanical stuff is very simple. And you don't have to learn every component of every platform.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm one of those people who will, if they ask me, if opportunity comes my way, and if they ask me like, do you edit on Avid? Even though I don't, I would say, yeah, I will.
Yes, just say yes, always. Every yes to every job. So yeah, oh no, I'm so fluent. I've been cutting on Avid for 15 years. And then go on YouTube. And then
yeah, exactly. At the moment I'm at home again, right? I'm like, okay, let's do a crash course right away. Talking about Premiere Pro, like, what are the things you would improve in that? Like, what are the things you consider to be the problems with that software?
I definitely think, and I think they're getting closer, but like something in akin to like script sync in Avid, something where you can just unify the script with the markers in the timeline. That I hear from everyone. And because I'm talking to so many other editors, especially Avid editors, they're like, that's what we need. That's what I need, especially for scripted TV or comedies where there's so many line readings. They need to see right away where stuff is. I mean, there's ways to get around that between how you set up your project and how we do our select roles and how I use the Pancake timeline to set up everything with my markers and everything else, that I have no problem finding any footage right away. I'm like, I know exactly where it is, or I just type scene 12 and it goes there. I don't have a problem with that. There's many ways to get to that answer in terms of that. That's the one thing that I don't personally need, but I do hear from other editors they would like it in Premiere Pro. But I don't think there's anything else between the sound, the color, the VFX, everything else is better than anything I'm using. Like, that's tip top for me. Like, I have access to everything I need within the platform, with Premiere Pro as the hub, going to Audition for audio, After Effects for VFX, whatever else, Mocha, everything that's built in. Like, I have all the tools there, and I'm the fastest and most fluent in that.
I'm the same, so I understand. However, like, I get a sense that sometimes, like, Adobe releases a feature and they kind of release it in the beta version. Like, it's not beta anymore because it's like out of beta process, but at the same time, like, I feel like, they should have put more attention into like polishing these little details, right, about the workflow. And that's the impression I get, like, that sometimes, like, they're focusing more on things that will sell better, rather than focusing the attention of their developers to actually, like, polish the little details that make the workflow,
I've heard that. They're like, don't release any updates, just fix everything that's almost working, or whatever.
I mean, yeah, that's an extreme comment as well, because, like, you have to release new things as well, right? So but obviously it's a balance, and I know that it's a huge challenge for people out there to actually, like, balance the thing and make it all sustainable as well financially. And yeah, I know it's a balance. Yeah.
It is. And I know I've been lucky enough to interact with the designers, the developers for 15 years, where I have direct access. I can call and just bitch and moan if I want to. Like, this sucks. Like, you got to do something about that. There's a priority list internally of like what's going to be addressed next. There's a list of new functions that they're trying to get out that have to be developed and properly executed. And there's not enough time in the day to address everything all at once and keep moving forward.
That's true. Not at the scale.
But every editor I've talked to, there's no company like Adobe where you can literally reach out and say, this sucks, or I hate this, or whatever, or actually get feedback or get something implemented. Like you can't do that at Apple or Avid. You can't call them and say, hey, we want this functionality. You won't, no one will answer the phone.
True. That's
and, working on Gone Girl, working with that editorial crew, there were over 200 new features that were written. The code was written while we were editing in the studio. And the two Adobe employees were literally writing code during lunchtime, making new builds of Premiere Pro for the entire 9 months of Gone Girl to help improve it. And the notes that they were addressing were coming directly from the ACE editors that were cutting the film. And so they were implementing that because Adobe wanted to keep Fincher happy and the editors happy. They implement that. 6 months after the movie comes out, all 200 of those requests were in the public build of Premiere Pro. So those weren't made by an engineer that said, editors need a big red button right in the middle of the screen. No. Editors said, we want dynamic linking. Editors said, we want this mouse to do this or that. What editors wanted was what was implemented. And that's what I think was the biggest change. Like when that build after Gone Girl came out, I think 2014 or 2015, whatever it was, there were so many features that people were like, I didn't even know I needed that. So like, that's what I appreciate about Adobe. They do listen. They can't solve everyone's problem at every moment, but they're trying to make it a platform that is being designed by editors for editors with a slight, corporate injection of whatever to make it look shiny and new, but the innards should work for an editor. And I don't know about you, but like I could open Premiere and cut anything so fast, like from the import, import, sequence export.
That's why I don't think I will be ever able to switch to anything else, even if someone would convince me to do it, because the efficiency and what I love most about Premiere is how customizable it is. So for example, Resolve, a powerful beast when it comes to color and things like that, but I can't customize my workspace area, right? Like it's not something I can customize. I have to live with what they embedded into software. While in Adobe I can I can set it up however I want to, right? And
Listen, I got to cut. Sometimes I have to cut on a 17-inch laptop. Yeah. In my main edit space, I have a 49-inch curved monitor, two 32-inch monitors, and like a 65-inch plasma. Yeah. And only on Premiere can I literally just stretch on the bottom screen, the 49 inches across. I can just stretch the timeline across all the way. Just drag the corner. That's it. Yeah. Which panel do I want where? And just save it. Yeah. Like with no restrictions, no we can't do that. It has to be in that monitor. No. And so, and I save all those workspaces and I go somewhere, I just fire it up, and it's such a good feeling. It's like you're always home. You're always on your most customized machine wherever you go.
Love it. Exactly. The question that I always like to ask everyone, so I'll ask you as well. Do you have a favorite editing book, a filmmaking book? Doesn't have to be editing specific?
No, I mean, honestly, there's so many. The best is still Art of the Cut with Steve Hullfish. I think that's the best because that shows you inside the minds of the editors. It tells you what their thought process is. It tells you how they approach problems. It tells you how they approach storytelling. Yeah. You can, if you want to learn how to cut, get the fucking manual for Premiere Pro or Avid. Just go, or DaVinci's 1,500 page manual. Go scroll through that. That'll tell you how to cut. It won't tell you how to be a storyteller. It won't tell you how to be a film editor. Yeah. So I would say, Art of the Cut with Steve Hullfish. I'm in there too, so that's another reason.
That's true. I think you are. Yeah. But you're not the first one to tell me that. I talked to Simon Smith, the editor of Chernobyl, and a few other high-profile films at this point, and he told me that his favorite one is Art of the Cut as well. So you're not the first one.
Yeah, no, it's the most comprehensive for the actual approach. Simon, I made the Chernobyl Vashi frame for him.
Yeah.
I sent him that, and he also wanted.
Simon is cool, by the way.
He's so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. He asked for one. He was one of the first. Can I get one for Chernobyl? And he goes, also, can you give me the 2001 Space Odyssey one? I'm like, yeah, I'll send it to you. So.
Yeah, he's also a cinephile. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I think all editors are do you watch a lot of movies? Do you have time to watch movies, or what's your approach?
So actually, I'm making more time these days to watch movies because for the last 3 years, I guess. So from the moment I have two little kids, and I used to I used to work in the post-production house for almost 2 years, but then I transitioned to freelancing. And that freelancing period, at least that the first 3 years, were something that, I wouldn't have time to watch many movies, so I watched very few. But from a few months ago, I just started to make more time to make movies. And actually, the project that I'm doing right now, the Vashi Frames short deck project of 28 days, is just to make myself watch some movies that I have on my watch list, actually, right? Yeah. So I'm making more time these days to watch more, to consume more of the things that are waiting in line on my watch list.
That's super important. It's important because, like, for me, that's therapy. It's like I'm watching. Even if I rewatch, I'll listen just to the dialogue, or listen to the score, I'll just do something. It's always playing in the background.
I think I've heard that you actually do play films in the background even when you're working, right? Like, is it something that you really do? Because I can't focus on. I have to. If I have film playing at the right side of my head, I will just turn my head over there. There is no way I can avoid it. So
no, I do that. I'll do that. I've done that. I've seen other directors and stuff. Like David Zucker would do that. He would have a movie playing. Mm-hmm. Scorsese apparently does it all the time. He has like literally TMC or like TBS or some kind of like old movie channel always playing in the side of the room. And I do believe, honestly, I felt it. It gives you like some kind of connection to the past. It feels like more important if that's playing. Kind of makes you focus and be like, there's the bar. Where's your bar? My bar's like there. So, so it kind of just like it helps you move forward, It feels like it's giving you momentum because it's like in the room with you. Okay. And that's how I treat it. So films or definitely scores, definitely music or scores or film scores, I'll play all the time when I'm cutting or doing whatever.
Yeah, film scores is, I listen to them as well when I'm doing like other things. But I don't know. I have to try listening to a film actually while doing something. I don't know. I don't think I'm able to do it.
It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, but it's more of like, it's just a trick to get you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah,
that's all. Yeah, and block out everything around you. It's like white noise. To me, it's white noise because I know these films and it's comfortable.
Okay, man. Thank you for doing this with me.
Of course, no, my pleasure. I love that you've been doing this. I love that you're again helping shine a light on this because there's not too many editing podcasts, and some of them I don't care for or whatever. It's like I think it's all about the person. I think you're doing a great job in terms of who you're picking and the subject that we're talking about. And again, the fact that you are an editor makes a huge difference. You're not looking for a story. You're just trying to share experiences. And that's one of the most important things because we're all in it together, and we're all, we have long days, we have easy days, but it's every day, it's always right there.
Okay. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Have a great day.
I find it like super interesting that Vashi is the best person to work on BigNet, to create BigNet, because it's about his father, but also he has been telling stories for years, so it's very uncommon that you have a father that has this great story to tell, right? And you're the best person to tell that story, not only as a son, but also as a storyteller. So that's super interesting. And I just had a blast talking to him. Like, he's such a great guy, and he's obviously much more accomplished than I am, but he treated me on the same level during that conversation. And, we've had a great luck talking to editors on this podcast. All of them are like, I think like, aren't like, how do you say it? Like, they're not
very pretentious. They're like super down to earth.
Exactly. We've been super lucky with it. And I hope we get another chance to talk to him once he's done with BigNet. I'm
sure we will. I think he's so receptive of the people that want to hear him talk, and he loves to talk, obviously, but he's also like that excitement, I think, makes him that much more approachable because he's excited to work on these things and he wants other people to be excited about the stuff that he is excited about. I can't wait to be a part of that conversation, considering I missed it this past time because I couldn't wake up on time. But I thought the one thing that really stood out to me, or thought was really, really cool, was that he was for 10 years, he was a professional hockey player. And then after he retired, he was like, I'm going to be a film editor. I'm going to be a filmmaker, storyteller. And he just basically jumped in with both feet. I thought that was really cool. And, there will come a time when somebody has to do a documentary on Vashi because his life has got a great story also.
Yeah. That's a nice twist, yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you out there, we'll put a trailer for Big Ned in the comments, in the description, so you can see it. But yeah, it's
and Vashi's website as well, I think.
And Vashi's, right? For sure.
I've been following him for years, and that's definitely someone to learn from.
All
Until
right.
the next time, shoot at it like
there's no tomorrow.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy day.
If you like what you've heard, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you've listened to this on. Your reviews help more people discover the show. You can also follow us on Instagram. Just search for @CutToReveal and tell your friends.
And if you have any questions or comments, send them to podcast@cuttothepoint.com. And who knows, maybe we'll use them in the future episodes. And as we say around here, until the next time, shoot and edit like there is no tomorrow.